What's up everybody, Krevas from Farsighte Music here, and today we are going to be talking about and breaking down the creation and inspirations behind my 6th solo album, Raymond. So ultimately what led to the creation of this album was a multitude of inspirations. One of the first and probably the most importantly is my recent stunt into sobriety, specifically from alcohol. It really allowed me to open the doors on giving a clear-headed exploration into a lot of very pivotal moments within my life. And of course, one of those being my time living at the Raymond apartments. Another one of those factors being jumping so fresh into adulthood with so little understanding and being so fresh into that type of lifestyle. Being able to see and feel a lot of new things, and also all the different types of experimentations, from the relationships to the drugs to the jobs and all that, definitely was something to be approached with a very clear-minded conscience. Based off of my story this time around, any familiar fans of my music will know that general concept of my albums has always been this is our story, something that we share. But this time I flipped the script into really diving into me more so. Still giving it a sense of relatability, but this album was a moment for me to really hone in on self-reflection instead of trying to be more broad with the approach. Another aspect of inspirations really derived from the kind of music I was listening to at the time of creating Raymond itself. And the first one I'd like to mention is For Your Eyes Only by J. Cole. Notoriously known as being one of the best storytelling albums in hip-hop history, it's really what drove the concept of Raymond, what gave it its abrasiveness, its tone, and how it was structured and all of that type of stuff. And really analyzing on the fact of being comfortable with speaking on all these topics and, you know, being able to face what is normally uncomfortable for a listener or the creator himself. The second album I'd like to discuss is The Divine Feminine by Mac Miller. One of the reasons this album was a huge inspiration was through its sequencing and production specifically. Whenever you listen to this album, it really helps entrance the listener into an experience throughout the entire project. There's not really any dull moment, and that was kind of the goal, was am I able to translate that type of effect into my project? Ultimately running off that idea with trying to give the listener a grasp for more once it's over. And rest in peace, Mac. And the third and final album that I'd like to discuss is Few Good Things by Saba. When you take both aspects of the previously mentioned albums, combine it into one, and give it to a man with nothing but pure innovation and creation in his mind, this album is what you get. You get the best of both worlds. You get the storytelling, the production, the sequencing, even from the flows to the lyricism. It encompasses what I liked about For Your Eyes and The Divine Feminine, puts it into one completely new and a unique experience. One of the craziest things about making this album was the fact that I was able to write, record, produce, engineer, mix, and master pretty much the entire project within only a month's time span, which really isn't a lot of time for something on this degree. The date specifically I'd like to highlight was that it was officially started on November 30th of 2025 and finished on December 31st of 2025, and was one of the first Farsighte albums where we actually gave a deadline to get stuff done, which I thought was pretty cool that I got to be the first. Now that we've talked about the inspirations behind creating the album, the big part of this video is going to be us now dissecting and breaking down each song one by one throughout the track list. And if you made it this far, just prepare yourself. It's going to be quite a lot. So grab a drink, get some food, hang out with me for a while we go through and break down Raymond. The first song I'd like to talk about is July 25th, 2018. July 25th, 2018.
Happy birthday, Krevas.
It's the oldest I've been, so we got a couple fifths and some marijuana roll. Took a sip and a toke for the future untold. With it being the first track of the album, it's not insane to think that it is one of the most abrasive and intrusive ways to open an album, but that was done with pure intention, purely out of heart. One of the first lines that I had actually thought of before starting the creation of Raymond was from the line, "My mama got arrested while I was getting my dick sucked." Weird to think that that's what started it all off. What I basically did with that line is I essentially made the track backwards, analyzing a step-by-step basis of that day, but reeling it from the moment I say that and working backwards throughout the day, if that makes any sense. A main component within the song is really taking the aspect of the yin and the yang, something that I've demonstrated frequently throughout my music lately, even going back to the release of Goddamn and Don't Die Wondering, which are polar opposites in their tones, their topics, and even from the capitalization or lack of in the track titles. And so using this song as a way to really hone in on that idea to give the perception of what's to expect for the rest of the album was definitely key. The yin and yang factor has always been extremely important when it comes to the music that I've been making lately. Fun fact, in the song when I mentioned my mom giving me those slides for my birthday, I still have them, and I still actively wear them almost every single day. They're not the most comfortable, especially after all these years, but I just thought that was a cool fact to share with you guys. One of the things you'll notice when listening to Raymond is the inclusion of voicemails at the end of certain songs. Reason for them being there is not only to help feed into the story of the album, but also to help the listener transition into the next songs that come after it. A proper transition piece more so. And in that case, I would like to shout out my boy Patrick for doing this one for me. Tonally completely different from the song itself, but still beautiful nonetheless. So shout out to Pat. Track 2, Stuck in the Dirt.
Lost in fantasy, grounded to the turf. Ain't lost in fantasy, was born to be stuck in the dirt.
This song was created as a somewhat loose sequel to my old song Is What It Is off of Granger release back in 2020. Really enunciating the fact of no matter where you really can get in life, even after all these years, you can still somewhat feel lost, directionless, completely exhausted, reeled into the mundane reality of life. One of the factors also being so new into adulthood, having to find your own place to live, is great, but now you got more bills to pay. Sure, you have more freedoms to do as you please, but you still have to uphold your responsibilities to stay alive. One of the main important factors of the song is the outro itself, and the reason why it sounds so different compared to the rest of the song is really enunciating the fact of though you as a person so new to this type of life is still learning a lot, there are still a good amount of innocent eyes like really watching what you do and trying to play your moves carefully so it doesn't redirect anybody into the wrong direction. Because though you may have those freedoms and the abilities to do as you please now, it can still negatively impact not only you, but the people around you. And I'd like to give a shout out to my boy down in SoCal, Greg. Thanks for being a part of this process as well with your voicemail. Next up, we got track 3, Background, featuring my boy Kirath.
Why you looking right at me? Yeah, you in the background too. Looking like you wanna fight me. Well, I wanna fight you.
This song is extremely special to me in the case of how it was created, actually. Any people familiar with my discography would know that me and Kirath collabed about a year or two ago at this point with Kidovic Volume 1. The plan was pretty soon after that was released, we were going to do Volume 2. Life lifed, and we weren't able to really get that started, but the one thing that did come from it was the creation of Background. I made the beat for him, sent it over. He ended up recording over it not too long after I sent it. It was fucking awesome. The issue was that I was kind of lacking on my music drive at the time and never really got around to finishing it, unfortunately. So it kind of sat in the works for about another year until I started my stint of sobriety, when I went back through what I needed to kind of work on, and background was one of them. So I locked in, ended up writing that song, and fun fact about it, it is one of, if not the first verses I wrote entirely sober in almost the course of 10 years at this point. The thing with the song too was it was really difficult to find the right place for it. Within the course of when it was made, so in this case about a year, it kind of jumped from multiple different projects that I still currently have in the works. It wasn't really fitting properly. Until near the end of creating Raymond, I realized, wait a minute, the topic of this song fits perfectly with the theme of the project, and I knew it had to go on there. At this point, a Kirath and Krevas collab is a necessity. Threw it on there, and it's a beautiful song, executed perfectly in my opinion. The main idea behind the song, and really its inception overall, is highlighting the people who have issues with having main character syndrome. The way this song is used is a way to help illustrate the issue with that whole situation there. Ego does a lot of crazy things to a lot of people, whether it's good or bad, really enunciating the fact that somebody is just another side character in somebody's story. Doesn't matter how poppin' you are, doesn't matter how big you get, doesn't matter how small you stay, no one's really any type of highlight to anyone's life. Even within the chorus, like, you're in the background too, looking like you want to fight me, just based on the fact of you think you got it so big, you think you're doing so well for yourself, really just goes to show, like, we're all really ultimately in the same position here, especially if you don't have as much notoriety as you think you maybe have. So it's kind of bringing everything back down to earth. We're all here, we're all just living, trying to make money, just trying to survive. That's just kind of the main concept of the song itself. A small but cool flex about this song, and one I was surprised about, it is one of the songs that is entirely clean. I don't know how it worked out that way, but I'm glad it was that one. Gives it a little more broad appeal in that sense. And also shout out to my boy Kirath from overseas. Wouldn't have been able to do this song without him, and it's one of my favorite songs off of the project, so a very cool experience overall, and I'm glad he was able to be a part of it. So make sure you go follow him on his socials and shit, because he is one of the most creative and inspiring dudes I've ever met. Next up, track 4. Wow. Next up, track 4, Drugs Can Kill, featuring Skully Rose.
Graduate to acid tabs and nick the mushrooms in the bag. Now who the fuck do I ask when I think I am going mad? Now picture that, the deadhead trap, rappers, hippies, plastic rapid, breaking bad. It's the map, I'ma die up in the acid bath.
Being a true comeback for the ages, this song was specifically curated for one of the first reappearances of Skully Rose on the Farsighte roster again in almost 3 years at this point. What really drove the inspiration of this track was pulling elements from the peak Lone Gypsees era, let's say a gypsy joint. Really trying to recapture that same drug-infused hunger that we both had back in the day, and something that's kind of been missing within the whole Farsighte catalog. At this point, we've really amped it up to 11. Really showcasing that we really haven't even missed a beat after all this time. For the people who aren't familiar per se, Rose and I were the two who moved into the Raymond apartment. We had started living together around that time. With two best friends moving in like that, that's kind of what drives the idea of the song, is two young dudes moving into their own apartment. There's gonna be nothing but pure experimentation, fear, excitement, every type of emotion and curiosity under the sun will be met living together like that, having to embrace a lot of the world like this for the first time, thankfully at least together. And the purpose of the song too is to help enunciate the idea that a lot of people generally, from what I understand, is using living on your own as a way to really dwell into deeper and harder drug experimentation. Something along the lines of even going from pot to LSD, going from even beer to liquor. Just certain things like that is something that I feel a lot of newly founded adults like to partake in, especially with that much freedom given to you at such a young age. One of the reasons I also wanted to create this song was to showcase that at the time, our household was kind of the place where it was all based on, if you're gonna do something dumb, make sure you go do it somewhere safe. We were kind of that stronghold for people to be able to safely and effectively express themselves through whatever they may have been partaking in at the time. If you needed somewhere safe, we were the place to go. Hence why we used to throw what we called our acid parties back in the day, where it'd be upwards to about 10 people who would show up, and we'd simultaneously just all take tabs and just yap and listen to music for upwards up until like 8 in the morning, until everybody had to go home, unfortunately. Just really showcasing that we did not really give a fuck. And being able to really translate all of that into a song with him specifically was just a blessing. So that was really cool to be able to get this done. And I'd also like to shout out my boy Lawson for doing his voicemail on this song. I had to get him on there, one of my day ones as well. And I love you, bro. And shout out to my boy Skully Rose, an absolutely amazing appearance from him, and I'm so glad it was able to get done the way it did. Definitely make sure to go check him out on social media. I know he's got some dope stuff coming out soon, so just keep your eyes peeled. Track 5, 92 Caprice.
I do it for ya. Everything I do is for respect, and the check is a plus. Learning from the woo, protecting neck, cause I'm civil enough. Fuck her in the 92, I know that she'll swallow my nut. Basically, I'm bulletproof from 33 grain to a slug.
What constitutes this song being on the project at all is from the way that it made me feel at the time. Especially having such a recognizable vehicle like that, it in a way almost made me feel like a celebrity. Driving that thing around, it was the only type of car you'd ever see in the area. A baby blue Caprice, yeah, that's not really something you're seeing often. One of the ways I wanted the listeners to feel when hearing the song is how I felt when driving the Caprice, which was unstoppable, powerful, a moving force that cannot be reckoned with. Which is why it derives from that funk inspiration, being so high energy, so bass heavy, and just really driving home the fact of not really giving a fuck. One of the stories behind having this car was around the time the song was based in, I actually almost started selling pot out of the car. You know, hitting different people's houses, just being your local drug dealer. It was in the books, until somebody pointed out how dumb of an idea it would be to drive an old cop car around flipping ounces like that, especially in a baby blue Caprice. It's one of a kind, you couldn't miss it. It's a recipe for disaster. Thankfully, that didn't go through, but because of that instance, that's how I ended up giving the car its name, which was Marshall, for anyone familiar with the Northwest songs from the Caprice type era references. Unfortunately, I did end up selling the car a good few years later because I needed rent money, but that's a story for another day. Track 6, On My Mind 2, featuring Wishi 6K and Ec-Stract. This song was directly inspired from one of Wishi's songs on his older projects, Def Jam's Y6K, obviously being called On My Mind, which featured myself and Ec-Stract as well. What's really unique about this song is shooting each verse from a different type of perspective. Mine coming from a more braggadocious, confident manner, Wish's really pulling from his struggles with certain types of addictions, and Ec-Stract's coming from the perspective of the artist struggling to make the art form. Not all specifically correlated to one another, but still unique in the sense of being able to be welded and just shed different lights of perspective on those topics. Ultimately, it's all about perspective at the end of the day. Fun fact about this song, it actually shares the same key and BPM of the original track. So you could quite literally swap all elements of the songs and it would still all flow seamlessly. Aside from the lengths of the songs too, of course. And I like to give a proper shout out to my boys Wishi 6K and Ec-Stract. Make sure to go follow them on their socials. Wish is one of the dopest MCs we got. He's just one of the most creative minds that we got in the group. And also with Ec-Stract being in that same camp as well, let alone shooting and directing and editing this video for me. So make sure to go check them out. They always got some dope shit coming out and it's worth it every time. And one last shout out on this song. There's a lot of collaborations on this one. My homie Brett, thanks for coming through with the voicemail on this one. If you gotta beat my ass, do it, because I'm still making music and playing Halo. Next up, track 7, Lone Gypsees. So this song is a story about how Rose and I had created what is known within the entire Farsighte alumni all across the world, the Lone Gypsees. Both of us coming from very similar backgrounds, being able to translate the experience of incepting what ultimately helped create what Farsighte is today was nothing less of a miracle. A majority of the song is a reference or callback to that old Lone Gypsy style, from the topic to the flow to even the beat creation on its own. It is an ultimate accumulation of what is, or at least was, the Lone Gypsies. A couple fun facts about the song is this track was initially a massive reference point for what me and Rose's original group name was, which was Two Storms, and that was the original title of the song before I changed it. That's why in the song, throughout it, you hear thunder and rain effects, and it's directly pulling from what we used to be called. This song was also made about 1.5 years ago on an original rendition of Raymond. And in the spree of songs that it was created in, those other songs eventually ended up becoming what we know as the Fairview Prologue. One of the last facts I have about this song is one of the samples used was actually pulled from an old unreleased 2018 Lone Gypsies track. So it's really cool seeing it be interpolated and flipped into something so new. It's really cool to see. Track number 8, May 10th, 2020. This song is a redemption tale for the ages, holding a lot of depth in the fact of how surreal this overall experience was, and it being technically the third and final installment in what I have to call my sad mom songs. It follows suit along the lines of other songs like Bullet of Goodbyes from Granger and Fail Me from Exiled. The main pieces behind the song really do come from the first and the second verse, really shifting the perspectives overall about this entire situation. The first verse is based off of pure skepticism, fear even, just from habitual patterns of being promised one thing but never being delivered through on that promise. So in the case of this song, being told that finally everything's okay, it definitely leads to a lot of doubt, shrouded in confusion and whether or not to accept this as being real or not. Unfortunately, when it comes to somebody living a lot of their life based around drugs, that's kind of the result that they're going to have to experience until proven otherwise. One of the key points behind that first verse is the line, "This reminds me of when I was 12 and wrote you that song about my fear of you and death and your relationship with meth." A very intense line. And that actually pulls from a real life experience in the sense of when I was 12 years old, I had took the instrumental from Going Through Changes by Eminem, rapped over it, burnt it onto a CD and gave it to my mom as an expression of, we all really want you to get cleaned up and get things figured out type of deal. Definitely the more unique experience a 12-year-old really probably shouldn't be having, but one that did happen. And of course had to be referenced in something as pivotal as this song. The second verse is where it's the realization that the change had finally came. It's finally happened. A complete 180 based off of the last time that I had seen her, which even based through the album was on my 19th birthday, aka the first track of the album. So really seeing the progress and being able to finally accept that she was healthy, clean, working hard, and just striving to be the best person that she could be was monumental and a total game changer for my life, her life, all of the family's lives. One of the cool stories about this song is that it was pulled from an experience that me and my brothers had which was after hearing that our mom had been doing so well, that we needed to go see her after all this time. At this point, it had probably been a good couple years. We planned a trip to go see her, and we ended up surprising her for Mother's Day, which at the time was May 10th, 2020, hence the title of the song. What helps gives this song the most importance is really recategorizing that yin and yang effect that I was talking about previously, even represented in the verses. The first one being so skeptical and full of doubt based off of something that you're hearing, but then the second one actually seeing the change and how everything's working out again, and how it continued to stay that way, if not get better. So shout out to my mom for being clean, healthy, and just being one of the most amazing women I could ever know. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without her. And I gotta give another shout out to my boy Rose. Came through with the voicemail for this song, really helped polish off this last half of the album. Track 9, Heaven, featuring Skully Rose, Wishi 6K, and Ec-Stract. What's cool about this song is that it's got a lot more story behind it than a lot of people would probably expect. And one of the main inspirations of the song when we made it was it being a reminiscent piece to when we had taken our trip out to McCall to lock in for a week straight and make the Llamas LP, which we did entirely from scratch. While staying at this Airbnb, one of the spaces that we had temporarily converted into our studio was this loft that was at this Airbnb. And we decided to nickname it Heaven simply from the fact that we had to walk up the stairs to get to it. Just a cool little fact about that. Unfortunately, this song never got to see the light of day up until the release of Raymond, just due to a lot of life stuff happening and not really having a right time to drop it. Another cool fact about the song is that it originally had a completely different beat. It was from a YouTube producer who has always made really good YouTube beats, but the situation was I had to remake the beat. The thing about making a whole new beat over a song at this point had been an in-house classic for so long was being able to recapture the vibe that made that song so special in the first place, why we were able to hold on to it for so long without just completely forgetting it. So through a lot of different takes and attempts, I realized one of the best ways to approach remaking the beat was shifting the tone. Try to make something that feels very nostalgic, angelic, and really just invokes that emotion that we felt when we were not only at Heaven, but when we were creating the song initially. So overall, this song seeing any type of light of day whatsoever is nothing less than a miracle. Track 10, Time Flies, featuring Versa and LoLyf.
Time in a crooked hourglass, in the hands of an unforgiving God. It flies and it probably will never land. That said, better spend it before it's gone.
Fitting into the timeline of events, this is one of the first Krevas, Versa, and LoLyf collabs that we have done since Dumb back in 2021 from their collab project Parlor Tricks. Though on the surface it's more of a dope-ass boom bap cypher-like inspired track, it actually is derived from an old collaboration project that we did, all three of us, back in 2021 that we had called Time Flies When You're High. Unfortunately, though that project may never really see the light of day, the heart of that project will remain engraved in this song specifically for the rest of time. What's really cool is that all three of us ended up putting references to the original tracks throughout the entire song. So technically, if you took the time to do it and figure it out, you could put together the original track list from our collaboration project. So if anyone can figure out what the original track list was, I'll talk to the boys and we'll put that project out. Of course, I gotta shout out Versa and Lo for collaborating on this song with me. Turned out extremely dope, and Versa's been putting out some heat. Lo's got some more heat coming out soon. I would definitely go follow their social medias to stay up to date with what they're doing, because they are doing some phenomenal things over there. Track 11, Alcohol is Synonymous.
But I blame it on genetics like the shit is hereditary. At first it's sympathetic like I'm dying of cancer, but it's almost like I'm vanished that I'll get an obituary. But really it's pathetic that I'm getting so pampered.
For those who haven't figured it out, The title is a play on the term Alcoholics Anonymous. And the song is exactly what it sounds like it's about, alcoholism. Referencing back to the beginning of the video, going into that stunt of pure sobriety was a massive eye-opener to how bad my drinking had really gotten at the time. Enough so to where this was definitely one of the hardest songs I ever had to sit and write for. Being able to confront yourself like that is definitely one of the most challenging things that really anybody can do. Just accepting your own reality, having that discussion with yourself. And it really does push the boundaries of where your maturity is at. Can you handle talking about something like this, no matter how small or big it may be? Where I'd say this song really does shine is in its very dark and muddy production, with its almost Godzilla-like stomps on the drums and the very ghastly, loud layers that are shouted behind the main vocals throughout the song. Really gives it that eerie and senseless feeling. A lot of the volume of the song is taken up by the fact that it is a straight 32 bars with only a chorus at the end of the song. The reason why the song was made in that way was to really enunciate the idea of being comfortable with talking about these things, being able to confront yourself like that, and really driving the aspect of using this opportunity as a way to possibly help somebody, help them either get or stay clean when it comes to anything that they may be addicted to. Ironically, a fun fact about the song is the original creation of it was completely different. Was a lot higher in tempo, was a lot lighter on the ears, even had like a vocal sample in the chorus. It was just a completely different tone. So nearing the completion of Raymond, I realized it stood out a little too much. I really liked the topic of the song. I really liked even directly down to the lyrics that were used for the verses. So I was wondering what would be the best way to translate this into something different. One of the ways I figured out how I could change the tone of the song was to slow it down, make it dark, and in a way try and make the listener uncomfortable when listening to it in the best way possible. What that resulted in is making one of the eeriest songs that I think I have ever really made. And also, I like to apologize for the puking at the beginning of the song. I know a lot of people don't like that type of shit, but it was necessary. And I gotta give a shout out to Maddie for coming through on the voicemail for this one. Finding somebody who would be okay with playing my ex-girlfriend is definitely not an easy task, but she came through with it and I'm glad it was able to get done. Track 12, Veins and Bones. This song is one of, if not, one of the darkest songs that I have ever made, and definitely in terms of the rest of the album. The topics discussed on this song are always extremely controversial and can be very difficult to grasp at times. And it's one of those songs that, with the best of discretion possible, is best to kind of listen to on your own terms, if it's something that you feel you're comfortable and ready to dive into. One of the key points I would like to discuss about this song is the chorus on the first half of the song, being that it does hold the most weight in the sense that it is coming from the perspective of an unborn baby, with the words of, "'Cause love is more than a battlefield. Love makes you ready for the kill. And a tomb that you wish to be your home," is all an analogy for how that unborn child would probably feel if it had the right amount of consciousness to think of such things. Definitely overall a difficult topic to discuss, and one that I feel is best reserved for the listener to go and listen to for themselves if you're ready for it. Track 13, Ignorance is Bliss.
Now lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, pray the Lord my soul to take. If I live for other days, I'ma do it all tomorrow. You know ignorance is bliss at the bottom of a bottle.
This song highlights a very dark point, I would say, in my life, which was basically completely giving up and making an attempt of suicide through alcohol poisoning. What this song stemmed from was, at the time, losing a lot of important people in my life, living alone for the first time ever, definitely drinking the most I ever had, and just not taking care of myself, being extremely unhealthy and overall just completely shutting myself out from the rest of the world. The chorus plays its part in enunciating those factors by using the prayer, if I die before I wake, as a flip of a yearning for an escape, which unfortunately the wish was to be through death. But through all those factors, one of the most important parts of the song would be the second half, where it does transition into a realization that if you're able to make it out of the scenario as such, the best route to go is to get a call for help. Coming out of an experience like that really does open up the eyes for somebody who is going through something similar, and realizing that though it may not feel like it, that life is definitely worth living for, even through all the good and all the bad, no matter what it may be. Taking every step you can at any chance that you can is worth it. And that if you ultimately do need help, if you have these type of thoughts or have made these type of attempts, to reach out to the people who matter most to you, who are willing to help you. I gotta give a shout out to Wish for coming through on the voicemail for this one. Really hammering in the idea of, hey bro, you need to get your shit together, which does help and play with the rest of the album so far. So shout out Wish. Again, make sure to check him out, follow him on his socials. He did a fantastic job on this one. Track 14, No Excuse.
Every promise interfered by a certain percentage, where they would probably shed a tear when they're reading the message. And I have lost a lot of years without learning a lesson, and I would blame it on the fear when there's none in the question. I gotta say,
this song is an apology through and through. The phrase, "we're all just human," is never really an excuse to somebody's extremely toxic behaviors. A part of the song that I would like to specifically highlight is the second verse, and running through the different perspectives of the people that I had directly affected during my time of all this pain and hurt and drinking. Ultimately, just asking for forgiveness at any point within our lives, even if I felt like I didn't deserve it. Track 15, February 28th, 2023.
don't forget about deposits at the end of the lease. I'm not at peace, leaving where a boy had grown into man. Though I'm cleaning out my closet, it's been harder to sleep. My skin is creased from the memories I used to hate I had. Like,
this song is about the day that we had officially moved out of the Raymond apartments. Looking back on all the things that had happened over the years and how much can really change over the course of 5 years. It's a lot of time in retrospect. Ultimately, what the song is trying to deliver on is, throughout all this time and change, that in a way, almost afraid of what's to come and coming out of it almost as a beat to hell kind of man, not knowing what to expect next. And that always delivers a lot of fear in a lot of people. Jumping into something so new after being acquitted to something for so long is never an easy task. A cool thing about this song is that in the outro, it hints at what's to be next within what I'm now trademarking as the Landmark Saga. It definitely leaves a lot more questions and gives a lot less answers than what was to be anticipated by this point of the album. But it is ultimately a culmination of everything that you had heard before. One of the key aspects that I definitely wanted to deliver on this song was the feeling of bittersweet. That is the definition of this song through and through. And also coming through with a more nostalgic feel in terms of its production, being directly based off of the songs that you would hear on something like Granger. And of course, I gotta give a shout out to my mom for coming through on the voicemail with this one. She really helped accomplish the goal of the song, which was to almost leave the listener in an emotional distress, sad in a way. Her talking about one of her favorite memories with me as a child, even to this day, even being the one who made the song, hearing that very end piece with her voice, I feel it still evokes just loads of emotion, and in a way wraps up the entire package with a nice little bow, but still leaving the door open for more to be explored. All right, looks like that's it. We successfully went track by track, piece by piece, breaking down every element of this album down to its bone. Definitely overall a roller coaster of emotions, from the braggadocious to the depressive, from the praise to the hatred, from the love to the loneliness, and even from the innocent to maybe being exposed to a little too much. This is an overall package that I feel encapsulates everything that I've needed to say over the course of my music career. And I'm glad it was able to get done, and that you guys are here watching and listening to what I have to say about it, and being curious enough to want to have a breakdown of this album in its entirety. If you're still here, I'd like to thank you for sitting and watching this and really indulging on this opportunity with me. And of course, I gotta give all the shout outs again. Shout out to all of Farsighte. We got Rose, Wish, Ec-Stract, Versa, Lo, Zay, P, me, and everybody else who was directly involved with helping get this process done. And of course, all the voicemails, all the homies, Lawson, Greg, Pat, Brett, Maddie, even my old boss, I forgot to mention her, but she's on some, my mom, and a big shout out to my girlfriend Trezelle for bearing with me and allowing me to hermit myself in my studio for hours and hours on end, just constantly having to deal with me making beats and fucking up on recording, getting through each song with me, telling me what she thinks. Like, she was a massive part in also getting this album done, so I couldn't thank her anymore. And it couldn't have been done without all of their help. Now, one of the cool things is that I've been able to encapsulate almost everybody who's important to me into one project, and for a project that is just so special to me. So again, thank you for watching, and tune in for more.